Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Hello, welcome to Paraversal Universe, where all paranormal perspectives apply. Join paranormal historian and ufologist Kevin Malik and psychic demonologist Jennifer Celsi-Malik as they navigate us through the different categories of the unknown and the unexplained, including ghosts and haunted places, cryptids and monsters, aliens and UFOs, theology and mythology, metaphysics, forbidden archaeology, urban legends and folklore, conspiracies, crimes, and corruption, with top analysis from the experts of these disciplines. If it's amazing, unusual, or mysterious, if it's bizarre, creepy, and fantastic, if it's unbelievable, paranormal, or supernatural, it's here on Paraversal Universe. Here are your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer.
Hello, everyone. Whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are, welcome to Paraversal Universe, brought to you by the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited at the Northwoods Paranormal Resource Center here in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malik.
Hello, everybody, and happy Friday.
Paraversal Universe is produced by Kat Hobson, the voice of Fate Magazine Radio, over at WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. We're also heard on WCET 101.7 FM out of Columbia, South Carolina, and the Rift Radio Network family based out of Lakeside, Virginia. Welcome one and all. And hello to everyone in the chat room. We look forward to your questions, comments, input as always. The archive for the show will be available as well. Show archives from over the years can be found in various places on the web, including our Archives Like page on Facebook called Paraversal Universe Show Archives. Also check out our guest promo page, Paraversal Universe Radio, for what's upcoming in the near future. We hope everyone is doing well, as always. We are now into November. It's getting cold here in northern Wisconsin, as the majority of the leaves have fallen. Of course, there are more leaves to fall, and it will get colder. But be that as it may, we have a killer show for you today, as we bring you a roundtable on the topic of paracryptozoology. But first, as always, let's do our shout-outs. Shout-outs go to those people who share our show banners on regular basis or recently that we are aware of. We always appreciate it greatly and thank you kindly. So who do we have this week?
This week we have Walt Christos, Thoughts of Christos, Katrina Cooper, Rhodey Speak, Dennis Koch, Cindy Lou, Robert Bull, Howie Odell, The Orion Effect, Gene Broida, Metaphysical Bounce, Kat Hobson, WBHM, Lawrence Demiza, Lisa Reynaga, Sudan, Lori Kreslaw, Ty Ward, Steve Carrington, Anomalous Universe, Dr. Chuck Kennedy, Project PSI Institute, Fate Magazine Radio, Clairvoyance, Todd David Anderson, Beyond Ultra Popular, Jock Brokus, Paranormal Daily News, D.M. Siegling, Tom McGuire, Bruce Tiffany, Tom Jacobs, Surreal Mix, Erin Stewart, and Gavin Lee Davies from the Paranormal Chronicles.
Thank you, everybody, We really appreciate it when the banners get shared around. That really helps us. So thank you. Thank you very much. Alrighty. Today we are going to be discussing paracryptozoology, which explores the idea that some of these cryptids people are witnessing may have powers or abilities that humans simply don't possess. It's not really a new concept, but the idea has been gaining ground as of late. So today we will be discussing some of these creatures people report seeing, as well as the different possibilities for the anomalous concerning which. And we have a diverse roundtable of esteemed colleagues who have spent a great deal of time studying and researching the unknown and unexplained. And joining us is cryptozoologist Scott Mardis from the Zombie Plesiosaur Society. How you doing, Scott?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for coming on Paraversal Universe again.
Mm-hmm.
And next we have folklorist Danny B. Stewart from the original Provo, Utah Haunted Tours. How you doing, Danny?
I'm surprisingly coherent. Thanks.
Alrighty. And Fortean researcher Steve Patrick Carrington from Anomalous Universe. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Good. It's a honor to have you back on. It's an honor to have all of you back on.
Yeah, we're really
Thank you.
excited for this.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Thank
Yes.
you.
And this is a really I love the diversity that we have this week on this, because we're going to be exploring this from many different perspectives and angles. I think we have our list of cryptids or monsters, and we have a list of possible abilities people report concerning those reports. Before we get into the specifics, let's open the floor with any opening thoughts or statements concerning today's discussion. So, who would like to start it off?
Well, I'd like to say that I am very much in the flesh and blood cryptozoology camp. And I think that it's too early to throw in the towel on finding physical animals behind some of these monster reports. To me, the most promising are obviously Patterson's Bigfoot and some of these lake monsters. I think if you propose a paranormal answer to these questions, you need to have some kind of a sensible scientific framework to back it up that makes sense from a physics standpoint, because cryptozoology is already working under the onerous that we're questioning current knowledge about biology, about the existence of these unlikely animals. When you add the paranormal explanation on top of it, you're not only questioning what we know about biology, but also about physics as well, which puts an added onerous on the argument.
Okay. Danny.
Yo. So I spent my entire life kind of steeped in this type of this topic, whether it be cryptozoology or what people call, or label the paranormal. And I'm very much a flesh and blood cryptozoologist too, but I want to also make it very clear, I'm not a cryptozoologist. That came out wrong. I'm not a cryptozoologist. I'm more an artist than anything. I'm a performance artist. I'm a folklorist and a traditions bearer. And I collect stories. And I've collected so many different kinds of stories over my lifetime that some things point to science, not being able to adequately explain what people claim to be experiencing. Now, what they could be experiencing could be strictly folklore, completely fluff. And to me, I still collect those stories, whether or not they are fluff or not, because it's still an important aspect of folklore. But when we talk about flesh and blood cryptozoology, you have to understand, and I think too, up the fact that so many animals that are alive today were monsters, like the mountain gorilla. the giant panda, the Komodo dragon. Those were considered monsters. The aardvark was thought to be a monster, and also the use of the word monster over and over again, which, has polluted a lot of what, so-called cryptozoologists claim to be pursuing. So what I do with my approach is I look at different aspects of folklore, myth, and legend and try to come up with hypotheses. Because in my opinion, I don't think that we're ever going to really be able to properly define or prove anything in the paranormal realm. But I think it's fun to hypothesize about certain things, like the Loch Ness creature being, a type of water kelpie or, undine, something like that. So I'm all about just talking about it and bringing things to the table for discussion. That's where I'm at.
Sweet. And Steve?
Yeah, well, along that line, I'm pretty much with Danny. I believe in flesh and blood cryptids that are out there, but on the other hand, I believe, some of them cannot be explained by rational means, by, for natural, being a natural animal or creature. Mainly, I'll be speaking about Bigfoot, which I believe, not to narrow that one down, but to me, it just doesn't fit into the normal realm now from hearing all the accounts of its strange possible aspects of it, and that's where I stand. I mean, I believe like the Loch Ness Monster and Champ, the oceans are vast and big, and we don't know, what lies out in the deep oceans and in these deep lakes. Things can hide, but with something like Bigfoot, right now, I'm more on the fence of it being somewhat not a normal creature, and that's pretty much where I stand. I'm kind of on the fence, but I guess I would lean more toward the woo factor, if you ask me.
Sure. And I think Bigfoot's going to be the animal or cryptid creature monster that we start with.
Can I add one more point?
Sure.
I just want to say I think part of the problem is that there are creatures that are loosely classified as being cryptids that I don't really believe are cryptids and are better off dealt with in fields like parapsychology and ufology, and I think that's part of the problem we're discussing today.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yes. There was, a few years ago, probably like 4 or 5 years ago now, maybe even longer, I wrote an article in Supernatural Magazine, and it just brought up the idea that here we have this field. Well, you have cryptozoology, of course, but then there are so many anomalous reports with some of these sightings that it seems there is a divide in the camps. Half of everybody, believes it's not. There's no supernatural, paranormal, anything going on, and then the other half says, well, there might be, because how else can we explain some of this stuff?
Right.
The problem is that the woo camp, if we could call it that, would get shunned anytime it was brought up, and kind of beaten down, because there's many in cryptozoology that would prefer to see it complete, or zoological opposed to supernatural or paranormal. So I felt there needed to be a definition to define this field, and so that people could discuss it with peers and treat it like science, like it needs to be, without fear of ridicule, and then that way the crypto camp can have their traditional contemporary cryptozoology without the woo. And so,
well, see, the problem with that is that people like me are trying to push cryptozoology into the realms of accepted science biology. And the paranormal stuff is standing in the way and driving the conventional scientist away from the flesh and blood cryptozoology by examination. If you can
even
understand.
Before that, though, they were pushing it away. I mean, when I was teaching at UVU,
this is making the problem worse.
I don't think anything's going to help us until we actually have a plesiosaur, the shores of Loch Ness.
I agree with you. You got to have some kind of type specimen. The closest thing we got so far is this giant eel idea based on the environmental DNA study from Loch Ness, which is still up in the
Before we can move anywhere, we need an I told you so moment. That's what we're waiting for, is an I told you so moment. And we haven't got that yet. And it's unfortunate that, so many scientists out there aren't doing their jobs. In fact, you know what? If zoologists actually did their jobs, there would be no need for cryptozoology. They'd be like the grandfathers of
the field of cryptozoology was conventional zoology's refusal to answer the question.
Well, yeah,
and to investigate it.
I think and the one thing we can't forget is that whether people like it or not, cryptozoology still deals with the unknown and unexplained, and because you'll never get away from that. I just felt that if you could define the two camps, cryptozoology and paracryptozoology, para being next to, right? Para, next to, or not.
Sort of a bridge between
right, because
cryptozoology and parapsychology.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's
ground.
Basically parapsychology focusing on some of the cryptid reports and being open to different things. Like when we go out in the field doing the paracryptozoology stuff, we're applying different things that traditionally aren't used in cryptozoology investigations, like psychics, credible psychics, or SLS cameras, or just all different, a whole host of things. Everything from spiritual to metaphysical to, and the parapsychology, and the ufology, and it all.
If I ever give up on a flesh and blood champ, I may take some of that stuff to Lake Champlain with me, but I'm not there yet. So
right.
Let's wait and see.
I think I think myself personally, when it comes to some of the stuff we're going to be talking about, that from what I've learned from my experiences and my studies in this field, is that there are some cryptids out there that may have paranormal aspects to them that we might not be fully aware of.
Right. Well, there's a concept in parapsychology called an animal poltergeist. What is the difference between an animal poltergeist and a paranormal cryptid? Is there any?
It depends on your definition of poltergeist.
Well, then you got to talk about nature spirits and fae traditions.
Right.
Yeah.
Nature spirit folklore, the old gods. The old gods are today's devils. And they've been vilified and pushed to the back.
Name, they had to call it something. Maybe we're just calling it by a different name today.
Yeah, and I mean it's when I look at the metaphysical elements of cryptozoology, I'm directly steered towards fairy traditions and nature spirit traditions, like Bigfoot. I think. I mean, I was asking my friend and mentor Dr. Paul Bybee the other day, what do you think is more likely? Do you think that a massive species, just focusing on Bigfoot alone, do you think a massive, a large population of species has stayed hidden from mankind for centuries? One solitary creature, immortal creature, has lingered this whole time. It's completely folklore nonsense, or it could be nature spirits if you're a faithful human being or are open-minded to that element. And he thought for a minute. He said, the nature spirits does make more sense if there is such a thing. That doesn't answer the question, but I think it's the vocabulary we use when we're trying to define and intermingle the paranormal with cryptozoology. We have to be better with our vocabulary. We got to use the word monster so much less, and even we got to come up with a new word for paranormal because there's so much baggage with it. Once you bring that up, it's almost like the original people.
I don't see an unknown animal species falling under the umbrella of paranormal. It's just an unknown animal species we haven't found yet.
We're going
of course.
to take a commercial break here.
All right. This is Paraversal Universe that you were listening to. It is time for our first commercial break. We will be right back with our panel for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
To the believer, the evidence is overwhelming. To the skeptic, there will never be enough. Hello everyone. Join Kevin and Jennifer Malik, the host of Paraversal Universe, every Friday here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Also heard on WCET-FM and The Rift. Log on or tune in as they check out the mysteries found within the 8 categories of the unknown and unexplained, including ghosts and haunted places, aliens and UFOs, theology and mythology, cryptids and monsters, urban legends and folklore, conspiracies, metaphysics, and forbidden archaeology. Listen as Kevin and Jennifer interview the top minds in their respective fields as they share theories and information regarding these unsolved mysteries. For future show and archive information, one can find Paraversal Universe on Facebook, Twitter, and MeWe under various Paraversal Universe headings. So, for excellent talk radio about the unknown and unexplained, check out Paraversal Universe, where all paranormal perspectives apply. Brought to you by the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society, LTD, and produced by WBHMDB.com.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back from our first commercial break, everyone. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting, also heard on WCET-FM and the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malik, and we'd like to take a minute to thank everyone that makes Paraversal Universe possible, including graphic art director Lawrence D. Miza, music theme by Matt Stenz, announcer Frank Lee, producer and owner at WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Kat Hobson. Also to Howie Odell at the Rift family, and to Michael Vera at WCET-FM. Thank you all for carrying our content and working together on our behalf and the behalf of our audience everywhere. And of course, a huge thank you to God in heaven, whose strength beyond strength is stronger than all, for granting us this wonderful show and opportunity here to be with you all.
Amen.
An appreciation to the various platforms we are on, including Spotify, iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Twitch, YouTube, Dailymotion, TalkStream Live, TuneIn, Blog Talk, Podbean, Google Play, Mixcloud, and Paranormal Livestream app, which is streamed and restreamed from various other outlets all over the world via the internet. This segment of Paraversal Universe is brought to you by the UFO Wisconsin Research Team, Wisconsin's alternative to MUFON, and also by the Paranormal Daily News, who have a page on their website dedicated to Paraversal Universe and the Paralogian Report. How cool is that? where our latest episodes are listed and linked. This is Paraversal Universe, and we are talking paracryptozoology with cryptozoologist Scott Mardis, folklorist Danny B. Stewart, and Fortean researcher Steve Patrick Carrington. And to start off this segment, why don't we start with Bigfoot, the king of the cryptids, most popular cryptid. I know, Steve, over the years, you have brought many articles to the surface for TN concerning Bigfoot and Bigfoot reports, and what are some of the things that are striking you to put you, I guess, on the paracryptozoology side?
That puts me on the woo fence, you mean?
Sure. Don't feel bad. I'm there with you. So
I don't mind being on the woo fence, believe me. No, just like I said, I'm on the fence. I at first I thought, Bigfoot could be an unknown primate, but after all these years and all, it's just I really don't believe in the migrating of these animals and, from one area to another. I mean, these animals are being spotted everywhere now, if you want to call them animals, humanoids. And to me, they're just, yes, unlike, other cryptids that we really haven't got any evidence of. Of course, with Bigfoot, we've got the cast, the tracks, the casts, the sightings, including, like Scott brought up earlier with me, the Patterson-Gimlin film was a breaker for me, a deal breaker, because that's really probably the only authentic film I would say that we've caught of one. But what makes me, believe that it might be something a little different now is it's just all these reports and accounts coming in, of these creatures disappearing in an instant and things like that with glowing red eyes. I understand reflection from light, but these people are saying these eyes are actually glowing from within, like creating their own light source, which would not be normal by any sense. And also, what turned me more toward the para side of it is a lot of these creatures, or hairy hominids, have been seen around UFO activity, or even there's been some accounts of seeing them coming from a UFO or boarding one. Now, there was a 1973 flap in Pennsylvania. That was a big flap of hairy humanoids and UFO activity. And there was a good book written by Stan Gordon called Silent Invasion. And this is all about that flap, about, UFOs being seen and hairy hominids in the vicinity with them. So, to me, it just doesn't add up to a flesh and blood animal anymore, a simple flesh and blood animal.
Okay. Let's, so, yeah, on the list, for the trait side of the list, and I think we can probably apply this to any cryptid we talk about. I'll read all of them, and then we can start with the anomalous lights and the UFO connection, because Steve just brought it up. But that being one, mind speak being one, shape-shifting being one, hole in the veil theory, demonic possibilities, ghosts of cryptids, portals, and cloaking or invisibility.
Yep.
Them are a lot of
abilities.
yeah, right. And who's got, well, of course, the first question is, which creatures are real and not.
Right.
But yeah, certainly these things are reported at different times by different people, different walks of life. And even if 5% of all these reports are accurate, we still got something going on.
Right.
Scott.
Yes.
Thoughts?
Well, as far as portals or dimensional travel or time travel, the two most theories with the most meat on them are this idea about quartz opening up some kind of a time doorway, which has been promoted by this guy named John Brandenburg. Let me see, I've got a summary of it here, and I'm going to read it real quick. Let's see. Give me a second here.
Sure.
I'll explain it in his own words. All right. Physicist John Brandenburg theorizes that time travel might be the cause of lots of sea monster sightings, including the Loch Ness Monster. He says because lakes like Loch Ness have a large concentration of quartz capable of generating enormous amounts of electromagnetism, this could have caused a portal through time to open in the lake. His theory is that Nessie might be going back and forth through this portal, which is why no one's been able to find her. So essentially he's talking about large amounts of quartz generating electromagnetism, opening up some kind of time doorway, and marine reptiles from the Mesozoic coming through these time doorways and then going back out. Obviously, he's suggesting long-necked plesiosaurs, which are the closest match of a known animal in the fossil record that we know to the Loch Ness Monster. And the other idea, let me find it, is a dimensional doorway. Let me see, where is that? Hang on a second
portals here. Or vortex or...
Yeah.
Window, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one explanation is a dimensional doorway. I'm trying to remember what is causing that. But he's suggesting time travel. All right, here we go. Mini black holes. This is from Wikipedia. Micro black hole. Micro black holes, also called quantum mechanical black holes or mini black holes, are hypothetical tiny black holes for which quantum mechanics effects play an important role. The concept that black holes may exist that are smaller than stellar masses, introduced in 1971 by Stephen Hawking. It is possible that such quantum primordial black holes were created in the high-density environment of the early universe or Big Bang, or possibly through subsequent phase transitions. This might be observed by astrophysicists through the particles they are expected to emit by Hawking radiation. Some hypotheses involving additional space dimensions predict that micro black holes could be formed at energies as low as the TeV range, whatever that is, which are available in particle accelerators such as the Large Hadron Collider. Popular concerns have then been raised over end-of-the-world scenarios. However, such quantum black holes would instantly evaporate, either totally or leaving on a very weakly interacting residue. Beside the theoretical arguments, the cosmic rays hitting the Earth do not produce any damage, although they reach energies in the range of hundreds of TeV. So that's some kind of quantum mechanical measurement of something, radiation, Hawking radiation. So there you go. So the idea is you've got many black holes or electromagnetic fields generated by massive amounts of quartz. So there you go.
Or
Danny.
at
least those two have some kind of theoretical basis to them that makes
Right.
sense.
Right.
You can just say, "Oh, it's a portal." Okay, what's a portal? I just gave you two potential answers there.
Right.
Right.
So,
When
Danny.
you say that, it's funny
Yes.
you say that because I believe we have window areas all over this planet. That,
we open up a window and it's a portal, ain't it?
Yeah.
There you go. It came in through
You
the
say
window.
portal, I say
It went
window.
back out. Yep.
Thoughts, Danny?
Well, I'm no stranger to the idea of the vortex or anything, having one of those right here in Provo, Utah. But whenever someone sees something they can't explain, I'm always reminded of a quote that comes from, and I might be butchering this quote, but it comes from Bernard Heuvelman, the father of cryptozoology, as some like to call him. And he coined this term called the snare of mythification, which kind of described that as when someone sees something from a certain point of observation and they can't properly define what it is for whatever reason, either it being something unknown or a known animal that is so far or out of the eyesight enough where people can't really put the whole piece together. They start to add little pieces of the puzzle like Lego pieces, trying to create and reform what they think this might have been. And as they think about it over time, more fantastical aspects start being added to it. And I think a lot of things people are seeing could be that type of experience where people see something they can't define. And with our ancestors, our ancient ancestors, they'd be walking in the forest by themselves and they'd hear a stick or a twig, snap, but nothing there would cause it that they could see. And so they start adding some type of metaphysical, supernatural, or even, spiritual element to the causation of that. And with that area, they start to build archetypes and descriptions of things that could be in that area. And people take those descriptions and go, "Oh my gosh, that could actually be there." And by no means does this mean that I am not open-minded enough to think that there is something in Loch Ness or Lake Champlain or even Bigfoot. I saw something when I was 10 years old that I think was Bigfoot. I mean, but that could have been a 10-year-old boy's snare of mythification. So I think that there's all these possibilities, from wormholes or vortexes to living unknown animals to known animals misidentified, that all need to be brought to the table. And I don't think that as mortals we have no right and no ability to prove or say anything until we have something right in front of us. And that's why I think using folklore, the cooperation of folklore and science is something that needs to be utilized more in this area. Because, look at the pharmaceutical companies. They send out their explorers to talk to indigenous peoples to find cures or remedies for things that they use in their own indigenous areas. And they bring that back. Well, why aren't we taking the indigenous people's stories about the fauna in that area more seriously? Like Mikiwamembe. What is that thing? Is this strictly folklore? Or is it a dinosaur? I don't think it's a dinosaur at all. I think that's complete fluff. I think my best guess would be, if it's something legitimate, it's some type of as yet unidentified large monitor lizard, similar to like the Komodo dragon, or even stretching farther, the Muggleania of Australia. But when you describe Mikiwamembe to someone, and someone who's never heard of it, they'll think it's a dinosaur. It's one way it's described. You could describe that same thing, use those same descriptions, and also be describing a type of large monitor lizard. It's just wherever the imagination of the people want to go. And in most cases, people want to believe the most fantastic. Believe me, I want the creature of Loch Ness to be a plesiosaur. I want Lake Champlain to be a plesiosaur or something like that. I want Mikiwamembe to be a sauropod dinosaur. But look at the fossil record of Mikiwamembe's area. There are no sauropods in that area at all. None. There are no sauropod fossils found. So why don't cryptozoologists, start looking at other options besides that? Because if it's not in the fossil record, it can't be a physical or a brontosaurus or a podosaurus. It can't be, unless we have, over the decades, completely bypassed any sauropod dinosaurs in that area. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think we need folklore and science need to cooperate better if we're ever going to get to the bottom of this. And that's kind of my goal, is to bring folklore and science together. for cooperation, because we're never going to go anywhere unless the scientists listen to the folklore and the folklorists start considering the science.
Well said. I agree with that. I agree with that. As a scientist, as a ufologist, I relate with the science and scientific method. As a paranormal historian, I relate with the history and the folklore and all that. And for me, I'm always trying to make sure both are incorporated, and I have a great deal of respect for both. I think, let's see, we got 2 minutes yet. So, yeah, my thoughts on Bigfoot, the cloaking, invisibility, that's an interesting notion. The portals is an interesting notion. Ghosts of cryptids, ghost of a Gigantopithecus, that could be it's plausible.
Green Man.
I'm not sold on the demonic thing, and I know Jennifer's not either, because people that do have Bigfoot reports or Bigfoot encounters they're not experiencing the same kind of things that we see in possession or oppression.
There are some creation.
There are exceptions to the rule.
Cryptozoologists that try to say that the Bigfoot are the Nephilim from the Bible.
Well,
Yep.
that's what. Yeah,
Crazy
I'm
a lot of
talking about
cryptozoology.
fallen angels and the Nephilim being the
Exactly.
offspring of
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Is it that time? Okay.
Yeah. All right, everybody. It is time for our next commercial break. You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our panel for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
When you come on to me, you feel like the sun. Watching through my senses, you're the only one. When you do that to me, you feel like the sun. And I just want to know you're the only
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back from the second break. This is Paraversal Universe on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, also heard on WCET-FM and the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Mallett. Before we get back to the show, we want to tell you all that we are also on MeWe and Twitter. Our like and group pages on Facebook are under various headings as well. Having said that, go check out our Society's like page, the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited, as well as Jennifer's like page. Jennifer Malik, psychic demonologist. Leave a like if you like what you see. We always appreciate it. This segment is brought to you by the book Trail of the Sasquatch, A Shaman's Journey by cryptozoologist and Iroquois shaman Don Young, who is also a member of the NWPS. Check out his Facebook group pages, Kindred Forest and Indigenous Americas. Any comments for this week's show can be addressed in the chat room live. And let's get back to the show. This is Paraversal Universe, and we are talking paracryptozoology with cryptozoologist Scott Martis, folklorist Danny B. Stewart, and Fortean researcher Steve Patrick Carrington. Alrighty. So, I think I'm going to shift gears here, unless anyone has any thoughts they'd like to share on Bigfoot yet.
Well, I'd like to add one little thing, if I could.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, if you look at it from a common sense point of view, Bigfoot can't be all over the United States, as some people claim, and be this elusive as a real animal. And I think the best case you've got for Bigfoot, Pacific Northwest, where the Patterson film was filmed and the best footprint evidence comes from. And I think that a lot of what might be going on other places could potentially be mass hallucination and psychological contamination, because you plant the idea that Bigfoot is out in the woods somewhere, and then you've got a whole bunch of people with expectant attention going into the woods. They may see a bear walking on its hind legs. They may find footprints where a bear has stepped with its front foot into, or stepped with his back foot into the same impression as his front foot and created a larger footprint. I think some of that may be going on some places, but that's just my opinion.
Stephen,
I find the case for Bigfoot in the Pacific Northwest that you see in the Patterson film compelling, though.
Steve had brought up the point that Bigfoot is sighted in so many, different places, I think when you look at the sightings map, it's pretty clear that a lot of people, he's seen in multiple places around the world, and for many people, the Patterson-Gimlin film is the best evidence.
I agree.
For me, because I had a Bigfoot sighting in my life, which was a catalyst actually to form the society. That was one of the reasons. And so seeing one, I know they're real. The Patterson-Gimlin film, I'm on the fence on.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you seen the stabilized version? The MK Davis worked
Isn't that
on?
something? I mean, it's amazing footage. It's amazing footage.
That convinces me. It's something. I don't know what it is, but I mean, it's fascinating. I can just watch that thing over and over and just go, wow, that is cool.
You look at it and it just screams real animal. Because I've never seen any special effects house.
Well,
even
if it is special effects, it's like the greatest hit ever. Because I mean,
for the special effects of 50 years ago, it's amazing.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, I saw the Minnesota Iceman when I was a kid in a mall in Gadsden, Alabama.
No kidding.
Oh, really?
In 1974, yes, absolutely.
30, what? How old is that?
With my own eyes.
100 years BC?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know which one you saw? Because there were two versions. There was one that supposedly
Probably
was
the fake one. Some people think it was all fake.
Yeah.
The one I saw had to have been the fake one. Because it was 1974. This would have been like 6 years after Heuvelmann's and Sanderson's examination of it. So, I don't know.
Right.
Huh.
You know what's interesting about the Iceman, too, is me and Jennifer are currently working on an article, tattoos. in paranormal. And of course, the oldest physical proof we have of tattoos is from the Iceman, because he's got tattoos. You see, 61.
I'm not talking about Otzi. I'm talking about the supposed Bigfoot carcass from Minnesota.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
My mistake.
The carnival exhibit.
Okay, never mind. Okie doke. Well, yeah. So we have also. Oh, and the other thing is the mind speak. Some people claim that they're
communication.
Yeah,
in
and
parapsychology, the best scientific evidence you have for any phenomena in parapsychology is ESP. So that's not beyond the pale.
Oh yeah, I don't think any of these theories are.
There's the reason why some humanoid related to man couldn't have it as well. So that's not.
I think that all the theories we have presented are plausible. And I think that there is science to back a lot of this stuff up. I mean, but let's go.
The further you go out on the fringe, the more you alienate the mainstream. So just bear that in mind.
Okay, well, since we talked a little bit about Nessie, why don't we go to Nessie next? And the paranormal or supernatural elements possibilities with Nessie would either be like a ghost of a plesiosaur, for example, or I know Aleister Crowley and others have done occult rituals, which
Crowley actually lived at Loch Ness for 17 years.
Yeah.
In a place called Boleskine House. And during the 1970s, Boleskine House was owned by Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin. He later sold it. And it recently burned down.
Not too long ago.
Crowley apparently, there's a documentary called The Other Loch Ness Monster about Crowley's years at Boleskine House. And apparently he was working on some kind of big incantation or magic spell, and he got called away by one of his colleagues and didn't finish it. And the idea is just that whatever he conjured up and didn't finish with the spell the way it was supposed to go has lingered around the area. And some people want to connect that with the Loch Ness Monster.
But there's centuries of tradition about the Loch Ness creature, though. Right. Before that, too.
Well, the Kelpie, yeah, that's old news.
Yeah.
Kelpie and the water horse, yeah. Yeah, and then there's Willox the Warlock, who was a warlock that lived around Loch Ness back in the 1820s and 30s that claimed to have a bridle that he could control the water horse with. So. But, there's two ways you can take that. You can take that the water horse and the Kelpie are mythified versions of a real unknown animal living in Loch Ness, or you could take the stance that the Kelpie and the water horse were mythological creatures all along, and that the tradition of the modern Loch Ness Monster is a modernization of the Kelpie legend. So, it's ambiguous.
All myths have a kernel of truth,
Well, I think it does.
Legends
or
do.
I wouldn't be out there looking for Champ, and I'm sure Roland Watson wouldn't be out there looking for Nessie.
Well, they got a kernel or a mountain of truth, depending on, the creature.
Thoughts on Loch Ness?
Say all they want about whether the Loch Ness flipper pictures were built on a computer or not, but the thing is, you look at the original unenhanced image, and you see an object that looks like a plesiosaur flipper, according to modern reconstructions of what they think plesiosaur flippers look like. So
I can't get around that picture. That picture is that's like it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. I totally agree. I mean, that's one piece of evidence for Nessie that is hard to get around.
Yeah.
Steve, are you with us?
Yeah.
Thoughts on Nessie, supernatural?
I
mean, is it possible?
Yeah, it's possible. like I said, I'm very open-minded to this, the woo factor, that it could,
I can't hear you very well, Steve.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, it's possible, like I said. I myself would like it to be a real animal, and it's quite possible it could be. I'm thinking, something. It doesn't breathe air very often. If it is a reptile or something along the lines, and the loch is very deep. Even in the silt and mud, it's probably a lot deeper than they even imagine. And I know a lot of people say, well, maybe it comes in through an underground tunnel or something that connects to the ocean, but that kind of gets written off. But because the loch would raise and lower, with the tide, and it's not, seawater, so that kind of counteracts that theory, I think. But other people think maybe when it comes down the canal, when it gets high enough, the water, and goes in and out at will. But to me, I would think somebody would see it more if it was doing, creatures were doing it that way, coming in and leaving the canal or something like that. But
recently Roland told me he's got like 8 reports from the River Ness.
Lately?
Yeah. Well, altogether over 80 years, but he's got 8 reports, so that's better than nothing. So.
And wasn't St. Columba's there too?
Somewhere near, they think, Bonaneros, where it goes into Loch Ness from the river.
That's what I heard too.
But,
yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Like I said, I'm more to believe that Nessie is a flesh and blood animal than, say, Bigfoot. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I when I look at Loch Ness, I'm inclined to. I think that when you look at all the different kinds of possibilities, and there's so many, it's kind of like I liken it to the missing 411 mystery, and that could this be a little of everything going on?
Right.
Where a certain small, if you had a pie chart, you have a piece that's misidentification, and a piece that is, perhaps even real. A piece that is this, a piece that is that, a piece that's supernatural. Topas, all these different ideas and theories. But again, if with all them different pieces, if there's, no matter how big or small, if there's a piece in there that's real, like the Nessie, then it's real. But what is it?
Right. Just like with this recent eDNA testing they did.
Right.
Coming up with the giant eel theory. Yeah, it's slimly possible, but the loch is filled with eels. So that all the DNA would account for, thousands of eels, not just one giant, and
right.
What percentage was inconclusive?
Yep.
It was like 20%?
20 to 25% was unusable. It was either too fragmentary or contaminated.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're all waiting on the science paper to come out to get down to the hard, where the rubber meets the road, so we can't do anything until the paper comes out. So.
Yeah, because when you have that much, unanswered, and there are other points were made too. Like, for instance, there are otter supposedly in the loch, but they didn't find any otter DNA.
And they found no otter DNA whatsoever, they found no seal
test wasn't
DNA.
the perfect test we were hoping for. Everyone was hoping for this perfect, undefinitive test.
The really disappointing part is they found absolutely no reptilian DNA whatsoever.
Yeah.
which seems to rule out at least a resident population of plesiosaurs.
Right.
That doesn't mean there's not plesiosaurs that come and go from the sea occasionally. So don't rule that out, you know. But there are 3 reptiles that live in the vicinity of Loch Ness, and there should have been at least a little reptilian DNA there. So I don't know.
Okay, everybody. And why don't we continue this discussion after our next commercial break? You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our panel for the next segment.
The hand grenade testimony is out. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. One of 2 transcripts released by impeachment investigators today is from Fiona Hill, the former White House aide who expressed concern to then National Security Advisor John Bolton about apparent back-channel efforts of the president's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, to get Ukraine to investigate corruption, including the Bidens.
She says, quote, his reaction was pain. This discussing the firing of Marie Yovanovitch, the former ambassador to Ukraine, who's going to come in for testimony next Friday. And basically he said, in fact, he directly said that Rudy Giuliani is a, quote, hand grenade, and he's going to blow everybody up. In fact, he made it clear that he didn't feel there was anything that he could personally do about this.
Fox's Chad Pergram in Washington. Today's other transcript is from National Security Council member Alexander Vindman. Republicans gearing up for the start of open hearings next week with a personnel shift on a key committee. Fox's Mike Emanuel on Capitol Hill.
So we expected a change in the lineup on the GOP side of the House Intelligence Committee, and here it is from House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy tweeting, I am appointing Jim Jordan to the Intelligence Committee, which has now become the Impeachment Committee, where he will continue fighting for fairness and truth. Rep. Rick Crawford has been an exemplary member of the committee and will rejoin it when this Democrat charade is over.
Meantime, the acting White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, under subpoena to testify, became the latest no-show for a closed-door deposition today.
I don't want to give credibility to a corrupt witch hunt.
President Trump speaking to reporters earlier before heading to an Atlanta event that's about to begin now, the launch of a campaign initiative aimed at attracting black voters. The president also throwing some cold water on China's reported claims of a possible rollback of U.S. tariffs in the trade talks. The Dow's been down. America's listening to Fox News.
If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. That's the problem growing businesses have because of a hodgepodge of business systems. One for accounting, another for sales, another for inventory. If that's you, you know it's a mess that takes up too much time and too many resources. And that hurts the bottom line. You need NetSuite by Oracle, the cloud-based business management software that gives you the visibility and control you need to grow. With NetSuite, you save time, money, and unneeded headaches by managing sales, finance and accounting, orders, and HR instantly from your desktop or phone. That's why NetSuite is the world's #1 cloud business system. Companies that use NetSuite grow 3 times faster than the S&P 500. And right now, NetSuite is offering you valuable insights with a free guide, 7 key strategies to grow your profits at netsuite.com/Fox. That's netsuite.com/Fox to download your free guide, 7 key strategies to grow your profits. netsuite.com/Fox.
Former Vice President Joe Biden becoming the latest candidate to file the paperwork for the first-in-the-nation primary in New Hampshire. Fox's Peter Ducey in Concord.
Within minutes of him filing, a lot of the questions upstairs were about Michael Bloomberg getting into the race. Now that the Bloomberg team is telling us that if Bloomberg makes it official and decides that he wants to be a presidential candidate, it's because he doesn't think anybody running could possibly beat President Trump in a general election. So the former VP was asked about that.
I welcome in the race. Michael's a solid guy, and let's see where it goes. I have no problem with him getting in the race. And in terms of he's running because of me, last polls I looked at, I'm pretty far ahead.
Bloomberg, the former New York City mayor, rethinking his decision earlier this year not to run. Meantime, Andrew Yang also filing his New Hampshire paperwork.
Independents have been waiting for a campaign that energized them and spoke to them and talked about the real problems they're seeing on their main streets and in their communities every day. And I think independents are going to come out for Andrew Yang here in New Hampshire and around the country.
Yang says Bloomberg is entitled to his opinion. The Secretary of State taking shots at Russia and China as Germany marks 30 years since the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Speaking in Berlin, Mike Pompeo criticizing Vladimir Putin's Russia.
Today, Russia, led by a former KGB officer stationed in Dresden, invades its neighbors and slays political opponents.
And saying China suppresses its people using tactics
that would be horrifyingly familiar to former East Germans.
Amid strains in relations between the US and Europe, Pompeo urging unity.
We must recognize that free nations are in competition of values with those unfree nations.
In London, Simon Owen, Fox News.
An hour to the close on Wall Street, the Dow's down 47 points. Mr. Brady, this is Fox News.
This news report is brought to you by NetSuite by Oracle, the cloud-based business management software that gives you the visibility and control you need to grow. NetSuite is offering their free guide, 7 Key Strategies to Grow Your Profits, at netsuite.com/Fox.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Paraversal Universe. Now in our second hour, produced by WB. You can always enjoy excellent Fringe Talk Radio for awesome and informative radio shows about the paranormal, supernatural, esoteric, and Fortean topics on this network and affiliate platform websites. Not only our show, but many other good shows about different facets of the unknown and unexplained. Much to listen to and much to enjoy. Stream live on TuneIn, iTunes, and the Paranormal Livestream app, available from Android app and iTunes Store. And this segment is brought to you by the Supernatural Magazine, where our articles can be read. All right, back to Paraversal Universe, and we are talking paracryptozoology with cryptozoologist Scott Martis, folklorist Danny B. Stewart, and Fortean researcher Steve Patrick Carrington. All right, so where did we leave off?
Still on Loch Ness.
Okay, let's continue.
Well, I was going to end that part off with saying also this creature that has been witnessed and seen over the decades, the original Nessie could have died off. We don't, from how long it's been there. It obviously could have a breeding population, and it finally died off. We don't know. And what people are seeing now could be multitude of things, because I don't think we've really had a really good first-class sighting in quite a while.
Well, has there ever been an actual photograph of something with a long neck that's actually been legitimate, ever, of any lake? I don't think there has.
I would say you've got the Manzi photograph.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
You've got the Bodette video from Lake Champlain. You've got the Rhines underwater photograph that shows what appears to be a long neck, the front part of the body, and 2 flippers. And some people, including me, question the hoax allegations about the surgeon's photograph. There's a lot of holes in that story. So,
yes, a lot of saying that the hoax was a hoax.
Exactly.
So that kind of throws a monkey wrench into that too. So I don't count that totally out either.
Well, with Loch Ness, to me, I think the best case scenario for a living specimen would be like the large eel hypothesis and a type of unknown salamander hypothesis, with, Roy Mackal talked about a lot of it. Those are my 2 favorite ones. But when you talk about the folklore of Loch Ness, you got to realize that you're steeped in the middle of Fey lore. And the fairy traditions in that area could have easily built, the archetypes that people are claiming to be experiencing there. And they're seeing something, again, with the snare mythification, they're seeing something in that loch. And they're going to attach the folklore of the fairy legends onto that. So like with Undine, that type of thing. So I just always like to look at the folklore around that area and what could have built onto what people were seeing. And I think you're absolutely right when talking about something that could have died off. And that's been like a culprit for many types of things, like with the Russian black unicorn, which was seen running around the Russian steppes. Our ancestors supposedly saw this thing before it died out, and then and they saw, and then that built upon the folklore of the Russian black unicorn, which was like a type of a Elasmotherian woolly rhinoceros before it died out completely. So how many of these things were lingering prehistoric survivors and then died out, but the folklore kept them alive?
Well, you've also got cases that are well documented of ancient peoples finding fossils and not knowing what they were and assuming them to be living animals and also misinterpreting them. That they believed that the legend of the Cyclops was started by the discovery of elephant skulls, because you look at an elephant skull where the trunk normally goes and it looks like a giant eye socket.
Well, Adrian Mayer has wrote a lot about the Griffin folklore and the connection with the Protoceratops.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. The name for the field is geomythology.
Mm.
You know, there are other lakes in the area, locks or whatnot, that also have legends and a lot of folklore and history to it. Concerning, water entities.
Yep.
So,
I would say that a lot of primitive people, most notably the Native Americans, gave real animals that we all know, such as beavers and wolves and all that, gave them supernatural abilities in their oral traditions. So just because an animal in some oral tradition of primitive people has been given supernatural powers doesn't necessarily mean that there wasn't a real animal behind the mythification.
Right. Yeah, and that's interesting, and that's a good point.
Well, here in Utah, we have Utah Lake that has water baby traditions from the Ute Native Americans.
I've heard of it.
Those things are supposed to be creepy as hell, but not only anyone's ever actually saw one, but the folklore still lingers in that area. And I'll be honest with you, when I go down there, Utah Lake is a creepy place. I mean, it's just bizarre in and of itself. I mean, I walked across that lake when I was 10 years old. It gets so shallow, but there's still like bodies stuck there no one's ever found. So it's just like, it's cursed. It's weird. It's fun to catch.
Try spending the night on Lake Champlain in total darkness.
Oh yeah.
Try that one.
All right.
In
I'm
the
down.
same place that the Bodette video was
Sure.
filmed all night.
I'm down.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears here, and let's there's two other cryptids I'd like to cover yet in this interview. Next one would be Mothman, and and Mothman is definitely black, flying, red eyes, and then you got like different. Now you have different. You have the older Mothman stories, and then the Owlman across the seas. That kind of similar
from Cornwall.
And then you got this. But then you had the Wisconsin Mothman sightings, and then you had this newer rash of, the sightings, the alleged sightings in Chicago. So, and we've actually here at Parallel Universe have interviewed 5 of the people that have been investigating this, and there's it's really interesting. That in itself is content for books and whatnot.
Yeah.
But aside from all that, the Mothman, right? So, and the original Mothman had police reports, had UFO stuff going on, had all
Men
kinds
in
of
Black, Injured Cold, all kinds of weird things.
Yeah.
When I think of Mothman, I think right of Keel, because he was right in the middle of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And like Scott said, we even had MIB reports, of people being threatened, for talking about it, and UFOs sighted in the area at the same time. I mean, we had pretty much everything going that could, woo going at that time during
I don't believe there is woo. I believe woo is just something that we don't understand. We don't have the scientific framework to understand it yet. I'm not saying it's not real. I'm just saying, I believe everything ultimately has a scientific explanation, but in order to understand it, we have to have a theoretical framework that makes sense in order to understand it.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I have a question for all of you to answer from the chat room. And the question is, do the panel members believe in the Chicago Birdman?
Well, that would be the Chicago Mothman under a different name. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Well, there are so many different sightings of different things like a flying human over the world, all just different names. I mean, Provo has the gigantic flying black manta ray. I figured out what that thing was.
Yeah.
I know what that thing was, and I'll tell you later, but I mean, they're all over the place. People are seeing things that look like flying humanoids. They just have different names.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem that I touched on earlier with mass hallucination and psychological contamination. This stuff really happens. All the things that the skeptics tell you are true, but not for everything, I don't think.
Oh, yeah.
They would have you believe that everything that people see falls under that blanket explanation. But here's how this works. I go to a lake somewhere, say a reservoir, a man-made reservoir, and I go and I tell somebody, I saw a monster in the reservoir. Then the next thing you know, there's a bunch of people that are looking at the reservoir looking for a monster. Yeah. And they see a boat wake, or they see wind blowing on the lake making a disturbance, and then their mind is prepared to see a monster, and they see one. And the human mind, memory does not work like a videotape. Memories it's well documented among psychologists that memories change over time, and you can make a suggestion to somebody. Somebody saw something they couldn't identify, and then you go and tell this impressionable person, you saw the monster that lives in such and such reservoir. And in their mind, the memory mutates into a monster. This is well documented.
Well, yeah. Well, when I first started my ghost tours, when I was still teaching at Utah Valley University, I would take a whole group of my students once every semester on a ghost walk. And I would take them to Provo Cemetery and have them all lined up around the outside cemetery. And I'd plant one of my students to say, "What was that?" And someone would do that, and everyone would see something. And I did that on several times when I was teaching. Then I stopped doing it because I felt it was counterproductive to what my real intent was. But that's a perfect example. I saw something. What was that? And everyone else, not everyone, but a good number of them, all thought they saw something moving in that same general area where the other student pointed.
You plant the idea that there's something there, people will see it because they want to see it.
Well, that's one of the explanations out there.
That's why you're better off in cryptozoology, parapsychology, all these fields, of putting the emphasis on tangible evidence, photographs, recordings.
Well, a good investigator does. It's unfortunately,
but
you have so many.
A lot of them don't.
I know.
Like,
I know.
Most of them don't.
Right.
What material evidence do you have for Dogman?
Well, I would present. First of all, I would present everything on Cynocephalus. I do a whole lecture just on the ancient history of Cynocephalus or Cynocephalus.
Delegated people. I'm familiar with it.
Right,
yeah.
Right. All the different, be it from biblical or different books from antiquity. There's a lot of stuff out there. A lot of different stuff. Different historians, different explorers.
But in the modern era,
the information's out there.
In the modern era, what physical or tangible?
And that's the other thing too.
Do you have?
If there were cases where there were evidence, I would suggest that stuff is also covered up by our government, and I think that for those times where there might be evidence, I think that gets swept under the rug as often as possible as they can get away with. I think it's just policy. I think there's a lot of stuff that just happens that we'll never hear about.
Right.
I think it's counterproductive to our goal to bring conspiracy theories into this, though, because every time you bring up conspiracy theories, you're always labeled as like a kook. I'm not saying that it's not helpful in some cases, but
A lot of
really,
people call it special pleading too.
Well, let's call it conspiracy analysis, okay?
Yeah.
Because
all right.
The conspiracy to hide evidence, and we know it's happening. So I mean, it's not like it doesn't exist. And I think most of the people listening to this program, have a good, they understand that and the thing about conspiracies is you break down the unknown and unexplained. One of those categories is conspiracies. Conspiracies, crimes, and corruption.
Right. And we can continue this conversation after our next commercial break. You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our panel for the next segment.
Welcome back to WBHM.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Several U.S. presidents are on record talking about the UFO mystery.
Yeah, Presidents Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan both had UFO sightings of their own, but the current presidential campaign might be the first in which UFO disclosure has been championed by a major party candidate.
DIA, CIA, it moves around, is operating a program to train psychic spies to spy and use their powers against Russia. John Ronson writes about this in The Men Who Stare at Goats.
The first known sighting of a ghost took place right after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in the late 1860s during the administration of Ulysses Grant.
Project Paperclip, Clinton releases it all in 1998.
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
I say, do you still think it's a meteor, Professor?
I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial.
It's a place where UFO hunters and scientists gather to examine paranormal activity in the region.
Some of the documents, this is bringing Nazi scientists into the United States to work here. So we fought against the Nazis, and it's not, this again is not a revelation. As early as 1947, 1946, we knew some of this, right?
On the paranormal, will we see U.S. President Barack Obama's foreign policy go intergalactic in a quest for gold stolen by aliens? We'll tell you at least how the White House responded to claims the chief executive has been teleporting to Mars. But let's get to today's Capitol account.
UFOs, hauntings, psychic abilities, conspiracy, ESP, cryptozoology. There are many things that remain unexplained in the inexplicable world around us, and we're talking about them here, looking for answers on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama. The truth is out there.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back from our commercial break. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting, also heard on the Rift Radio Network and on the airwaves at WCET-FM. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malik. Our new book, Paraversal Universe, Decade of Diligence, experiences, cases, and insights from the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited. Should be out in 2 weeks. In fact, the final transcribing will be done tomorrow. So look for that. We're excited about that. And we're excited to share some of the stuff that we can talk about with everybody. So this segment is brought to you by the Parasociology like page on Facebook. Parasociology is the study of how paranormal manifestations and experiences can affect a family, group, or collective. Parasociology also examines how spirituality is practiced in different cultures. So go check that out if you get a chance, and leave a like for future content. All right, back to the show. This is Paraversal Universe, and we are talking about cryptozoology and paranormal possibilities and paracryptozoology. And we have cryptozoologist Scott Mardis, folklorist Danny B. Stewart, and Fortean researcher Steve Patrick Carrington. And we had just touched on Dogman, and before that, we were talking about Mothman. And, the idea, like, Mothman is one of those creatures that's almost more supernatural with a lot of the way things are explained for the legitimate cases. And if that should even be a cryptid, or if that shouldn't be classified as something else. But be that as it may, it's in cryptozoology. It's been cited in different places. Just basically flying humanoid, black, whether it be bird or owl. Steve, what are your thoughts on Mothman?
Well, at the time of the original Mothman reports, of course, they were putting up, the theories that, maybe it's a crane people are seeing, or a large owl, which, but maybe possibly for a couple accounts, but that doesn't explain glowing red eyes and a creature that stands taller than a man, It doesn't cut it, as something like a normal bird. To me, I would say it was more, as Keel would have said, the Mothman kind of displayed prankster behavior. It wanted to be seen, then it could disappear. To me, it was more in the woo factor as compared to something in flesh and blood. It just didn't fit any known description, like I said, of a crane or an owl or anything of that nature. That's how I feel about that.
Some people believe Mothman is a fallen angel, something demonic.
Well, it's like, I want to inject this really quick, not to touch on this one for too long, but look at the Jersey Devil. People seem to think that that's demonic too. And I say that only because there's only one of them. There's never been more than one of them. And when people have sightings, they describe this thing as looking literally demonic.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm willing to bet that was a escaped kangaroo. That's where my bet is on the Jersey Devil. Personal collection, escaped kangaroo.
I was thinking it was a hammerhead bat. And
so many, there is a theory that's popped up by Brian Regal in the last couple of years that he traced back that the Leeds family wrote an almanac back in the late 1600s or early 1700s or somewhere in there, and got in a rivalry with another almanac, and that the other almanac accused them of being Satanists or something along those lines. I can't remember off the top of my head, and that is the true origin of the story of the Jersey Devil. And so
that's really interesting.
Yeah, if you'll look up on academia.edu, there's an article that Brian Regal wrote called "The Real Jersey Devil" that goes into all the details. So.
Yeah, and the other idea too is, is like showing up before disasters. Those kinds of things. That to me sounds ominous.
Yeah.
One thing that goes against this political theory that Brian Regal has is the fact that the Indians in Illinois had an animal monster that was exactly like the Jersey Devil called the Piasa, which they made a big rock painting of on the Alton, Illinois part of the Mississippi River, if you've ever heard of the Piasa bird. And it's identical to the Jersey Devil in all respects. And
how do you spell that?
Piasa. Piasa.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
So
okay, now I know what you mean.
There's one argument that you could say, well, the Jersey Devil goes back further than this political theory that Brian Regal's come up with. So I don't know. They're both very impressive arguments. So.
Yeah, the Jersey Devil and the Mothman, another thing they have in common, Jen pointed out, is that there's no breeding family unit.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I think one of the, I can't remember how many, Wisconsin sightings, I believe, had a couple involved.
The classic description
but
of
usually
what the
they're just
Jersey
by
Devil
themselves. Right.
is supposed to look like is about 4 feet tall with a horse's head, bat wings, and a long tail.
Right.
With a point on the end of it, which sounds vaguely pterosaurian. So.
Or chupacabrian.
Yeah.
Certainly something unusual. And yeah, both of them are just, without, like you said, breeding family unit, and just bizarre, and who knows? I think that I wonder about some of the stuff they're doing at CERN,
Yeah, true.
and trying to open dimensions, and who knows what they're doing. And, of course, you find out that all the people that work there are in the occult and everything else, and they're having secret ceremonies.
If you really go digging, you can find Sasquatch reports where they talk about it was wearing clothes, it was talking to people, it knew the English language. There are crazy reports out there. There's also crazy reports of Bigfoot molested me and all kinds of crazy stuff. So obviously you've got to go through the database and weed out the white noise.
Yes.
Absolutely. And this applies to all of the claims of the paranormal. My position is if you make a paranormal claim, you have a burden of evidence to provide, proof of your claim.
Extraordinary
works,
claims need extraordinary evidence.
Exactly. That's Sagan's dictum.
Yeah. Well, and continuing with the Mothman accounts, we'd also have to probably bring up that a lot of people believe in a curse with a chief.
Oh, Cornstalk.
Cornstalk.
Yeah. He was murdered.
That he put a curse. He was murdered, and he put a curse on the area. And a lot of people think that's where Mothman was spawned from.
Steve, how far are you from the Barrens?
What's that?
How far are you from the Pine Barrens in New Jersey?
Quite a ways.
Yeah. Are you closer to the Ohio?
What's that?
You're in Delaware?
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you're New England.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm in.
I used to live close to the Barrens. I was in Philadelphia for 5 years.
I'm down near the Dover Demon area.
Yep.
Yes, Dover Demon.
And the White Mountains.
Yep.
Well, we had
Betty and Barney Hill happened.
Yep.
As a ufologist, I just want to say really quick that when you look at all the different possible species that have been presented in ufology, both from America and across the ocean, the idea that there could be, there's like 100 and some different alien potential alien species governments claim are visiting the Earth, hypothetically, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
the chance that just even one of them may look like a Bigfoot, to me, is if we do have different species visiting us, if they're sentient, if they're similar to us, head, 2 arms, 2 legs, whatever, then yeah, I could totally see that. Does that explain? Am I saying that all Bigfoots are aliens that look like Bigfoots? No, certainly not. Could a very small percentage be something like that? Perhaps, but I wouldn't rule it out because I
There's
don't
a
know
book
for sure.
by this guy named Patrick Huig called The Guide to Extraterrestrials, which he's broken down into different categories, and one of them even looks like a centaur. It's got 4 legs and an upright front part of the body with arms.
Yeah.
So I don't know where these reports came from, but you got a lot of really, if you really dig, you got a lot of crazy stuff out there. Like me and Steve were talking recently about this thing that happened in the 1950s where the little green men gave the guy a pancake. And I saw where he was on.
That was up here. That was like 30 miles from here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, well, anyway, I saw a documentary that was made in England back in the 1960s
Oh, maybe
where they had the guy on the program with the pancake. Seriously.
It was in Wisconsin. That must have been cheese then.
No, we have a case in Eagle River where a man claims to have basically seen a UFO, and he had an interaction with a being, and the being gave him a pancake.
Yep. That's it.
Yeah,
that's I think, or late 40s. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just like 30 minutes away from here.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Well, there you go.
Case, yeah. Pretty cool stuff. And, yeah, I also agree. Like, anytime you have cryptozoology and ufology kind of mixing, or cryptozoology and parapsychology mixing, or cryptozoology and demonology mixing, that's definitely a case for paracryptozoology, which is just
when I was
cryptozoology,
growing up in the 1970s, there was basically cryptozoology, ufology, and parapsychology, and they were all kind of neatly broke up into 3 different categories. And you had cryptozoology, where it said, well, we're looking for unknown animals that we haven't found yet that may be prehistoric survivors, like the Loch Ness Monster might be a plesiosaur, Bigfoot might be some kind of relic hominoid. And then in ufology, you had the explanation, well, they're visitors from outer space visiting our planet from other planets. And then in parapsychology, you had people see apparitions and their survival of dead people. And those answers all kind of made sense. And then people started mixing and matching, and everything got all messed up.
Well, I tell you, when you look back, it's all connected. There are cases
that's
where...
That's what John Keel said, but that's really no answer. I mean, I'm not saying... I like John Keel's books, too. But just saying it's all has no answers is no answer. We need to be looking for answers. That makes
that's what
sense.
we're trying to do. I mean, that's the whole idea.
Well, I know, but some people aren't. They're just,
Right.
They just like the stories and they don't care.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the problem is when these people that don't care are trying to pass themselves off as serious researchers, because they're not. They're just perpetuating stories.
Well, that's why we have to start looking at when we normalize this topic, we have to actually start publicizing the discoveries that turn out to be mundane, so that they see that we are actually pushing that forward. Because look, we have this thing in Provo called the gigantic flying black manta ray. I'm not going to go over the whole story, but I was studying this thing from 2013 to 2019. And I've been collecting people seeing this thing over and over again. They're seeing this gigantic 20-foot wide by 20-foot long black flying manta ray flying across the sky in Provo. Well, it turns out that there was this, it was like a big group of bats that had been collecting the top of the hospital in Provo. And when people would see it fly over this large group of bats, it may have taken the form of a giant manta ray. But for years, people swore they were actually seeing a gigantic flying black manta ray, something similar to the Mothman or whatever. But we have an answer to that, what it more than likely is now. So we need to bring that to the surface so people will look at us and go, hey, they're not just looking for monsters, they're looking for real answers. They're open to the most mundane, to the most fantastic at the same time. And too many of us are looking for that dinosaur in the lake. And that's all they're talking about. And it makes all of us look like idiots. It just takes one person constantly looking for a dinosaur to make the rest of us serious researchers look like complete morons. And there is one of our main problems.
Yeah. And there was a book that came out not too long ago that disappointed me because up until that point I considered that person to be. I was just. I guess sometimes we assume that other people are doing due diligence the way we try, and to find out, that wasn't the case. And basically, at what point does it become Reddit when nothing is looked into? And when it is looked into and found out to be, hey, this isn't true, this is fabricated or made up or half true or whatever.
Well, that's why you have in science, you have the referee process. Somebody who wants to publish a scientific paper.
Right.
Run through a referee process where other people knowledgeable in the field look at it and decide whether it's worthy to be published in a science journal or not.
Yes.
And we need more of a referee process in cryptozoology investigations, parapsychology investigations, and ufology investigations. It all needs to be put through that process.
The cryptozoology peer reviewship.
Yeah.
We
used to have that before the International Society of Cryptozoology went belly up. I was a member of it. They published their own journal. They had referees and everything. And then the society went belly up, and the principal people, Roy Mackal, Richard Greenwell, Bernard Hughes, they all died. And now there's no cryptozoology police. I wish there was. But we have to police ourselves,
Well, let's all go to law enforcement school, whatever it is. Let's get this started. It's up to us to be the police now.
All right, everybody. And with that, it is time for our next commercial break. You are listening to Paraversal Universe Radio. We will be back with our panel for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate Magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
Alrighty, we're back, everyone. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Also heard on WCET-FM and the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malik. And we're glad you're with us, as always. There are some Facebook group pages we'd like for you to check out. The Ultimate Conspiracies group page is one, which is dedicated to conspiracies, crimes, and corruption. Also check out Lake Monstrosities, dedicated to aquatic mysteries and wonder. And we should also point out the Zombie Plesiosaur Society and Anomalous Universe. Check those groups out. Feel free to join them. We'd love to see you there. Each of these networks mentioned has a group and like page on Facebook as well. So go check those out for upcoming content. This segment is brought to you by the 5-star Reader's Choice Award-winning epic fantasy trilogy Helm by Robert L. Malik. And back to the show. We are talking about paracryptozoology on Paraversal Universe. And we are this is our last segment. We have Scott Murdice, Danny B. Stewart, and Steve Patrick Carrington with us. So with this last segment, I'd like to take half of this last segment. And Scott, you could dive a little bit into the remote viewing and the
well, you touched on the idea earlier that the Loch Ness Monster and other creatures like that could be the ghost of a plesiosaur. And there is an anecdotal story, which you have multiple sources to back it up. Explain to me exactly who Jim Mars was. He's deceased now.
He's
historian.
He's most famous.
Theorist.
Yep. Most famous.
Well, anyway, he's one source of the story, and the other source is a guy that used to be on Coast to Coast AM quite a bit, named Major Ed Dames, who was supposedly actively involved in the CIA's remote viewing program. And the story is that Bill Clinton asked the remote viewing team to investigate the Loch Ness Monster with remote viewing. In doing so, they claim to have seen creatures in Loch Ness that looked like plesiosaurs, but that materialized and dematerialized on several occasions as they were watching them. And they came to the conclusion that they thought that the Loch Ness Monster manifestations were the ghosts of plesiosaurs, which were supposed to have been extinct for 66 million years, according to conventional geology. So,
one of the theories out there is the veil theory, or the hole in the veil theory. I just wonder if the veil isn't really thin at Loch Ness. Especially when we talk about Crowley, and then you got the castle, that's out on the peninsula there. It looks all mysterious, and I'm sure they had some unusual doings, during its prime, and who knows who else has been out there trying to summon stuff or this or that. But just the fact that maybe just by geographical whateverness, ley lines or geomagnetic energy or whatever. That
well-known investigator of Loch Ness, Ted Holliday, had a lot of thoughts along those same lines and tried to connect lake monsters with sightings of UFOs. He wrote several books along those lines.
You mean Frederick William?
Particularly The Dragon and the Disc.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
We should also mention Tony Doc Shields, too.
Yeah, well,
zoology.
He's a stage professional magician, so part of his modus operandi is to fool people, and he's more or less confessed that his Nessie photographs are fake, so it's very ambiguous. Take it as you want to. I have no faith in him.
The reason I brought him up is just because in the past he was one who would discuss the idea openly, just different ideas. That's why I brought him up. I mean, to me, but yeah, you're right. And unfortunately, again, just like I was talking about with that book, sometimes we get let down, and that's just...
This book you're talking about, what's it about specifically?
I would rather not say on air. I'll tell you after.
Right. As you know, I have my secrets too. So.
Yeah.
It's no big secret. Anybody that really knows me knows I have people that I have problems with too. So there you go.
So let's take the last little bit here. First of all, let me thank all you guys. You guys are awesome.
Well, thank you for having us on.
Yes.
All three of you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, and we enjoyed everybody's thoughts and views and opinions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the first thing we could do is take a couple minutes and just talk about any pages we have, any groups we have, any contact information we'd like to share, any events, anything like that. And why don't we start with Steve?
Sure. As you mentioned earlier, I have the group Anomalous Universe, and that pretty much covers anything anomalous and any mystery and anything that's unexplained. So, and I also have a smaller blog on Facebook called Thoughts of a Fortean Researcher. And I also help run Cryptozoologists United. So those are the three groups I'm pretty much, with. I'm also with Scott's group. I help administrate that one. And I help administrate Kevin's. So I'm quite busy.
Yes, at Lake Monstrosities.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And Scott. Yep. And so, yeah, and Scott, how about you?
Well, I have several Facebook groups and pages. The most prominent one is the Zombie Plesiosaur Society. Then I have CHAMP, Lake Champlain Monster Research by Scott Martis and William Tregennis Facebook group. Then there's one for the paranormalists called the Ghost Plesiosaur Society. Then for the skeptics is the Lake Monster Skeptical Forum. And then there's a page I started in 2011 called Lake Champlain Mystery Animals. I have a book out on Amazon called Night of the Living Dead Plesiosaurs, a digital-only book. And I'm supposed to be appearing in a documentary sometime next year called Science Friction, about how experts are brought on television programs and re-edited and misquoted. So we'll be appearing on that. And that is supposed to be on Netflix sometime next year.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And for those listening, you can catch Scott also on Monster Quest, the very first episode of Monster Quest featuring Mr. Scott Martis.
Yep.
I missed that show.
Yeah, you need to bring that back.
Mm.
And Danny.
Yes. I own and operate the original Provo, Utah Ghost Tour, and you can find me on Facebook under that same moniker. There's also I have a Facebook page, just Danny B. Stewart, focuses on my personal research. I write for Utah Stories Magazine, so if you look up Utah Stories Magazine, Danny B. Stewart, you can find a lot of articles about Utah local folklore and strange events. These are all events I've found and things I've found. I don't regurgitate or Google any of this. This is all stuff I've personally researched and stumbled upon. On December 3rd, I'll be giving a talk at Utah University Science Department on the cooperation of science and folklore. That'll be in a science building in room 260. And then December 12th, I'll be giving a talk at the Orem Public Library on Christmas folklore, titled Scary Ghost Stories and Tales of the Glories, where I'll be focusing on lost Christmas and Yule and solstice traditions. And yeah, it's going to be some fun stuff. I'm also working on the Made in Utah festivals with Utah Stories Magazine, and we'll be having a very large festival coming up this December, focusing on Utah local folklore and traditions and made goods.
Sweet. And one thing I'd like to plug is the Paracryptozoology like page on Facebook, which is adminned by myself, Jennifer, and Don Young. And there is a whole host of information pertaining to the topics we were talking about on the show. Different articles by different paranormal professionals, different scientists, different cryptozoologists, and different fields. And the thing with paracryptozoology is that because it is open to ideas that are out of the norm, at least. So, yes, go check that out. It's really interesting. Like it for future content. Looks like we got all of that out of the way, and we still have 5 minutes left. So, closing thoughts. What's that?
I was going to mention to Danny. He's in Utah, right?
Yeah. Provo, Utah.
I don't know if you want to answer this or not. What's your thought on the skinwalker phenomena?
Everyone asks me that. Everyone asks me that. And my response is I don't really have a response because I haven't spent a lot of time looking into it, simply because there's not really, I haven't found any real solid information that I think is valuable. And I have several Native American friends that I have spoke to, and they've promised me, I've promised them not to talk about what they've shared with me if they shared with me. So I have some interesting stories from their reservations, but nothing that I am privy to share out of respect, a promise I made.
Understood.
Yeah. But let me tell you this though. What they have shared with me is very convincing, and very few things creep me out, and it certainly creeped me out a little bit.
Yeah, I've heard that not just the Skinwalker Ranch per se. Of course, everyone focuses on that, but that there's a whole area, around there, and for miles that is just like paranormal infested, with apparitions, ghosts, Bigfoot, UFOs, everything. To me, it sounds like another window or portal area.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
We're talking with Trey Hudson, parapsychologist, who has identified another area with some solid scientific research, I might add. And we just did that show. Was it a couple months ago? It was really fascinating. What else was I was going to say something else. I can't remember. And geez. Okay. I don't remember. I apologize that we didn't get to the dogmen, the werewolves, shapeshifting, and Cynocephalus.
That's what we need to do a part 2.
Part 2.
Part 2 is coming up. Yes, we'll do part 2 in February. We'll book that. We'll make that happen. It will be fun. And it'll be awesome.
I'm very skeptical of the existence of Santa Claus. I think 90% of the sightings are
right?
Santa Claus is a nature spirit.
You're getting coal. You're getting coal.
Santa Claus and Satan. They both wear red. Have you ever seen them together?
No.
No.
I don't believe in the tooth fairy either.
Better hope there are no kids listening to this.
Don't get me started on Santa. We need 2 full episodes for that.
Right.
It's a topic I'm quite obsessed with.
Or Krampus.
There you go.
Actually, I can think of one place that Satan and Santa have been seen together. The Mexican Santa Claus versus the Devil movie that's on YouTube.
I have not heard of it.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look it up.
Santa Claus, 1959. It's hilarious.
Not to be confused with Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
No, there's another good one. But the absolute best one, though, the best one is Santa Claus and the Ice Cream Bunny. You've got to see that at least once.
I've never even heard of that.
Okay, on that note, we're going to wrap this up. we'd like to thank our panel for being so informative and awesome. You guys rock.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's what I do.
All right. Yes, and we'll do a part 2. And we will be back next week. Feel free to support any of the networks mentioned here tonight, as well as the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited, 501c3 nonprofit organization, by donating. It's folks like you who ensure these excellent organizations will be here tomorrow. I believe we have Richard Sennett next week. Anyways, we'll be back next week. So, to the believer, the evidence is overwhelming.
And to the skeptic, there will never be enough.
Thank you. Good night. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you here next time.
Good night, everyone.
Toodles.
Night, guys.
Good night.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.